The Grand Assembly Hall of Apex 7 space station stretched 300 meters in every direction. Representatives from 47 different species sat in their designated sections, each area designed for their specific environmental needs. Some sections had water tanks for aquatic species. Others had high-gravity platforms or atmospheric shields. The hall represented the diversity of the Galactic Council, a body that had maintained peace for over 2,000 years. Ambassador Chen Rivera walked toward the human section with measured steps. She was only the third human to ever address the council. Earth had joined the galactic community just 18 months ago, and most species still viewed humans as primitive newcomers. Chen wore a simple blue diplomatic uniform, her dark hair pulled back in a professional bun. She carried a data tablet containing evidence she hoped would resolve today's dispute peacefully. The Kryloth section dominated the eastern quadrant of the hall. The reptilian species stood over 2 meters tall with scales that shifted from deep green to black depending on their mood. Supreme Adjudicator Vexter led their delegation. He was a veteran of dozens of territorial disputes, and he had never lost one. His reputation across the galaxy was built on intimidation and absolute confidence. The council session began with routine matters. Trade agreements between the Zephlon Collective and the Mineral Guilds. A border dispute between two minor species that was quickly resolved. Then came the matter Chen had been dreading. Council Speaker Aldris, a floating being of pure energy, announced the next item. We now address the territorial claim filed by the Kryloth Dominion. Regarding human mining operations in the Outer Veil region, Vexter rose from his seat. His scales darkened to an aggressive black color. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of absolute authority. Esteemed council members, the matter before us is simple. The Kryloth Dominion has ancient claims to all resources in the Outer Veil. These claims date back 400 years, long before humans even discovered space travel. He activated a holographic display showing star charts. Furthermore, our scientists have examined human jump drive technology. It is clearly derived from Kryloth designs that we made public 2 centuries ago. According to Galactic Law Article 723, any species using technology derived from another civilization's designs must pay tribute to the originating species. Vexter's eyes fixed on Chen. Therefore, we demand that humanity immediately cease all independent mining operations in the Outer Veil. Additionally, they must pay 60% of all resources extracted to date to the Kryloth Dominion. They will continue to pay 60% of all future extraction as tribute for using our technology. The hall filled with quiet murmurs. Chen felt the eyes of dozens of species watching her. She stood and approached the central platform. Esteemed council members, the Kryloth claims are completely false, Chen began. Her voice was calm but firm. First, regarding the territorial claim, human mining operations are located in unclaimed space, verified by council surveys conducted just 3 years ago. The Kryloth have no valid historical claim to that region. She activated her data tablet, projecting holographic images. Second, regarding our jump drive technology. Here is the complete development history of human faster-than-light travel. We began research in 2087, achieved our first successful test in 2141, and refined the technology over the following decades. Our designs are based on theoretical physics developed by human scientists. Yes, there are superficial similarities to Kryloth drives, but that is because both technologies are based on the same universal laws of physics. Chen displayed comparison charts, technical specifications, and historical records. We developed our technology independently. We owe the Kryloth nothing. Their scales darkened further. You dare question the word of the Kryloth Dominion? Your species has existed in space for less than a century. We have maintained our empire for over 3,000 years. The council knows who speaks truth here. Chen looked around the hall. She saw the faces and forms of dozens of species. None of them spoke in support of humanity. The silence told her everything. In this council, power mattered more than truth. The Kryloth had influence. Humans had none. Ambassador Rivera, Speaker Aldris said, the council has reviewed the evidence. While your documentation is comprehensive, The Krylov claim is supported by precedent. We recommend that humanity negotiate a tribute arrangement with the Dominion. Chen felt anger rising in her chest, but she kept her voice level. With respect, Speaker, this is not justice. This is extortion. We will not pay tribute for technology we developed ourselves. We will not abandon mining operations in unclaimed space. Vexter moved toward Chen. He towered over her, using his size to intimidate. Then let me make this perfectly clear, human. You have 48 hours to evacuate your mining operations and acknowledge our claim. If you refuse, the Kryloth Dominion will remove your presence by force. Your miners will be seized. Your stations will be destroyed. Your ships will be converted to scrap metal. The hall went completely silent. This was a direct threat of military action. Chen knew she was standing at a crossroads. If she backed down now, humans would forever be seen as weak. Every species in the galaxy would know they could push humanity around. But if she stood firm, she might be starting a war Earth could not win. She looked directly into Vexter's eyes. Earth rejects your claim completely. Our mining operations will continue. Our people will not be intimidated. If you take military action against human civilians, we will consider it an act of war, and we will respond accordingly. Vexter laughed. It was a terrible hissing sound that echoed through the hall. War? You dare speak of war? Your entire species has 15 colonies and perhaps 50 military vessels. The Kryloth Dominion controls 12 star systems and commands a fleet of over 800 ships. This is not a war. This will be an extermination. He turned to address the full council. Let this moment be recorded. The Kryloth Dominion formally declares a state of war with the human species. They have 48 hours to surrender. After that, we will take what we are owed. The council erupted in shocked conversations. Several species protested the escalation, but most remained silent. They had seen this pattern before. A powerful species claimed territory or resources from a weaker one. The weaker species either submitted or was crushed. That was how the galaxy worked. Chen walked out of the hall with her head held high. She showed no fear, no uncertainty, but inside her mind raced. She had just committed humanity to a war against an empire that had existed for thousands of years. She reached the human embassy section and immediately opened a secure communication channel to Earth. Message would take 6 hours to reach home through the relay networks. She composed her words carefully. This is Ambassador Chen Rivera. Priority Alpha situation. The Kryloth Dominion has formally declared war on humanity. They are demanding we abandon our Outer Veil operations and pay tribute. I have rejected their demands. They will likely attack our mining stations within 48 hours. Request immediate instructions and military support. Chen out. She sent the message and sat down at her desk. Through the viewport, she could see the stars. Somewhere out there in the Outer Veil, human miners were working. Completely unaware that their lives had just been threatened by an alien empire, Chen opened another file on her tablet. She began reviewing everything Earth's intelligence had gathered about the Kryloth military. Their ships, their tactics, their history. If war was coming, humanity needed to understand their enemy. As she read, one thought kept echoing in her mind. The Kryloth thought humans were weak because they were new to space. They thought humanity would surrender when threatened with superior numbers. They were about to learn that humans measured strength very differently. Part 2. The Kryloth learn about human history. Commander Za. Rex stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominance. Behind him, through the massive view screen, he could see 119 other Kryloth warships assembled in perfect formation. This fleet represented a significant portion of the Dominion's military power, but for dealing with a primitive species like humanity, it was more than sufficient. Jarek had commanded fleets for 40 years. He had fought in the border wars against the That'seen clans. He had crushed pirate operations. In the frontier zones, he had overseen the subjugation of 3 minor species who refused to acknowledge Kryloth's superiority. This mission, however, felt almost insulting. Supreme Adjudicator Vexler was sending a fleet of 120 ships to deal with human miners. Navigation. Prepare for jump to the outer veil, Jarek ordered. His scales were a calm green color, reflecting his confidence. Communications. Prepare a surrender demand. Standard format. Give them 10 minutes to evacuate before we begin seizing their assets. The fleet jumped through space, covering the distance to the outer veil in less than an hour. When they emerged from faster-than-light travel, Jarek expected to see panicked human miners fleeing in cargo ships. Instead, his sensors detected 3 human destroyers in defensive formation around the mining stations. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the human vessels," his communications officer reported. "Put it through," Jarek said. He was curious what excuse the humans would offer. A human appeared on the view screen. She wore a dark blue military uniform with insignia that marked her as a captain. Her expression was completely calm. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Force destroyer Defiant. You are ordered to withdraw from this region immediately. Any hostile action will be met with lethal force." Jarek actually laughed. "Human captain, you face 120 warships. You have 3 destroyers. Your vessels are outgunned, outnumbered, and outmatched. Surrender now, and your crews will be treated as prisoners of war rather than criminals." The human captain's expression did not change. "Commander, before you make a terrible mistake, we recommend you research human military history. Specifically, look up the following events: Thermopylae, Stalingrad, the Winter War, the Battle of Midway, and the Siege of Bastogne. You still have time to withdraw peacefully." The transmission ended. Jarek stared at the blank screen in confusion. What were those words? Place names? Events? And why would the humans think their primitive history mattered? "Weapons. Lock targets on all 3 human vessels," Jarek ordered. "I'm tired of their games. Fire at will." The Kryloth fleet opened fire. The human destroyers immediately scattered, breaking formation and diving toward the nearby asteroid field. Jarek sent 40 ships in pursuit while maintaining defensive positions. Around the mining stations, what happened next shocked him to his core. The human ships fought with a ferocity he had never witnessed in 4 decades of military service. They used the asteroids for cover, appearing suddenly to fire devastating volleys before disappearing again. They coordinated their attacks with perfect precision, 3 ships moving like parts of a single organism. When Kryloth vessels tried to surround them, the humans would suddenly accelerate at dangerous speeds, passing between enemy ships and firing in all directions. 1 human destroyer, the Defiant, took critical damage to its weapon systems. Jarek expected it to retreat or surrender. Instead, Captain Chen aimed her ship directly at a Kryloth heavy cruiser and accelerated to maximum speed. The Defiant crashed into the cruiser's midsection with such force that both vessels exploded in a massive fireball. "What are they doing?" Jarek's second officer whispered in horror. "That captain killed herself and her entire crew just to destroy one of our ships." The battle continued for another 2 hours. The other 2 human destroyers fought until their shields failed, their weapons ran dry, and their hulls were torn apart. But they never retreated. They never surrendered. They fought until they were destroyed. When the battle ended, Jarek stared at the tactical display in disbelief. His fleet had lost 18 ships. 18 against 3 destroyers. The trade ratio made no sense. No species fought like this. No rational military force would sacrifice themselves so completely. "Sir, the mining stations are evacuated," his scanning officer reported. "The humans must have removed their people before we arrived." Jarek barely heard him. He was still trying to understand what he had just witnessed. His science officer, Chanel, approached him hesitantly. "Commander, about those words the human captain mentioned," Chanel said. "I accessed the Galactic database and researched them. I think you should see what I found." Chanel displayed information on the main view screen. Thermopylae, a battle on Earth approximately 2,500 years ago. 300 human warriors held a narrow pass against an army of over 100,000 soldiers. They fought to the last man, buying time for their people to prepare defenses. She changed the display. Stalingrad. A city siege during a massive human war just 300 years ago. Both sides fought over a single city for 5 months. Casualties exceeded 2 million soldiers and civilians. Neither side would retreat. More images appeared. The Winter War. A small human nation was invaded by an empire 50 times its size. They were outnumbered and outgunned. Military experts predicted they would fall in weeks. They fought for 3 months, inflicting casualties at a ratio of 5 to 1. Chanel continued through the list. Each battle showed the same pattern. Humans fighting against impossible odds. Humans refusing to surrender even when defeat was certain. Humans turning disadvantage into advantage through sheer determination and creative tactics. "There's more, Commander," Chanel said quietly. "I researched broader human history. Their species has been fighting continuous wars for their entire recorded history. In the past 5,000 years, Earth has known perhaps 200 years of complete peace. They have fought wars over territory, resources, religions, ideologies, and political systems. They have developed thousands of unique weapons, strategies, and tactics." She displayed a graph showing human technological development. Their advancement accelerated during their most violent periods. Their 2 largest global wars drove innovations in medicine, manufacturing, communications, and aerospace technology. They advanced from basic flight to space travel in just 60 years. War pushes them to evolve faster. Jarek felt something he had not experienced in decades: fear. He looked at the debris field where 3 human destroyers had made their final stand. He thought about Captain Chen deliberately crashing her ship into his cruiser. He remembered her final message about human history. "They were warning us," he said slowly. That captain knew she was going to die, but she wanted to send a message. She wanted us to understand what we're facing. His communications officer interrupted. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from Earth Defense Command." "Put it through." Different human appeared on the screen. This one was older, with gray hair and a uniform covered in medals and insignia. The translation software identified him as Admiral Marcus Chen. His expression was cold as ice. "Commander Jarek of the Kryloth Dominion. This message is a courtesy, something your people did not extend to us. You attacked human civilians. You destroyed 3 of our ships defending peaceful miners. You wanted this war? Now you will learn what humanity does to bullies who threaten our people." The Admiral leaned forward. "We know your fleet lost 18 ships. You think that's bad? Commander, you have no idea what's coming. Humans have spent 10,000 years perfecting the art of war. We fought on every terrain, in every condition, against every type of enemy. We've survived ice ages, plagues, and weapons capable of destroying our entire biosphere. And through all of it, we've learned one simple truth." The Admiral's eyes burned with intensity. "We fight hardest when our backs are against the wall. When someone threatens our families, our homes, our freedom, that's when humans become most dangerous. You wanted a war? Congratulations. You're about to learn why we're the best in the galaxy at fighting them." The transmission ended. Jarek stood in silence for a long moment. Finally, he turned to his communications officer. "Send a message to Supreme Adjudicator Vexler. Request immediate reinforcements." "At least 200 additional ships, sir?" his second officer asked in confusion. "We've secured the mining stations. The humans lost this battle." Jarek looked at the tactical display showing the locations of his destroyed ships. "No, we didn't win. We just survived the warning shot. The real war hasn't started yet." He thought about those historical battles. 300 warriors holding off an empire. A city that refused to fall, despite millions of casualties. A small nation bleeding an army 50 times its size. The humans had tried to warn him. They had given him names and battles to research. They had offered him a chance to understand what he was facing. And like a fool, he had ignored them. Commander Chanel said quietly, "I found one more piece of information in the human database. It's a quote from one of their ancient military philosophers. Sun Tzu, he wrote, 'If you know your enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles.'" Jarek nodded slowly. "The problem is, we don't know them at all. We thought they were primitive and weak. We were very, very wrong. He looked out at the stars, wondering how many more Krylov ships would be destroyed before his people learned that same lesson. Part 3. The escalation. The news of the first battle spread across the galaxy within hours. Communication networks carried reports to every civilized world. The story was simple. The Krylov Dominion had attacked human mining operations. 3 human destroyers had fought against 120 Krylov warships. The humans had been destroyed, but they had taken 18 enemy vessels with them. Most species assumed humanity would surrender now. They had lost. Their miners had been displaced. Their ships had been destroyed. Surely they understood they could not win against the Krylov Dominion. But on Earth, the response was very different. General Park Jinsung stood in the war room deep beneath Seoul. Around him, holographic displays showed the positions of every human military asset in known space. Red markers indicated Krylov fleet movements. Blue markers showed human forces. The room was filled with military leaders from every nation on Earth, all working together with a unity that would have seemed impossible just months ago. Status report, General Park ordered. Colonel Williams from the North American Alliance spoke first. All shipyards have accelerated production schedules. We're working around the clock. 12 new destroyers will be completed within 6 weeks. The Mars shipyards are focusing on frigate product. Ion. Military reserves. Park asked. Fully activated, replied Commander Okonkwo from the African Federation. We have 6 million trained personnel ready for deployment. Colonial militias are forming on every human world. Volunteers are overwhelming our recruitment centers. Park nodded. This was what made humans different. When other species faced impossible odds, their populations panicked and divided. Humans became more unified. They became more determined. Every person on Earth understood what was at stake. The Krylov had threatened human families, human homes, human freedom. That was unforgivable. What about our diplomatic situation? Park asked. Ambassador Chen appeared on one of the holographic displays. She was still at APEC 7 station, representing humanity to the Galactic Council. General, the Council has called an emergency session. They want us to surrender. They think we're being stubborn and stupid. Are they offering any support? Park asked, though he already knew the answer. No, Chen said flatly. Most species are staying neutral. A few minor civilizations have expressed quiet support, but none are willing to act against the Krylov. We're on our own. Park had expected this. The galaxy operated on power dynamics. The strong took what they wanted. The weak submitted or died. It was a system that had lasted thousands of years. But humans had not survived on Earth by accepting that kind of system. They had fought against it constantly, overthrowing tyrants and empires, refusing to accept domination. Then we fight alone, Park said simply. What's the status of the Krylov Second Fleet? Intelligence reports 300 ships assembling at their main naval base, Colonel Williams said. They're clearly planning a major assault. Target is likely New Jakarta colony. New Jakarta was one of humanity's largest colonies, home to 2 million people. It had factories, farms, and a growing civilian population. If the Krylov wanted to break human will, attacking New Jakarta made sense. Defensive preparations? Park asked. Commander Okonkwo brought up tactical displays. We've evacuated all non-essential civilians. 100,000 remain, mostly volunteers maintaining critical infrastructure. We've deployed our 5th, 7th, and 9th fleets to the system. That's 42 ships total. We've also laid defensive mines throughout the approach vectors and hidden automated weapons platforms in the planetary rings. Park studied the tactical map. 42 ships against 300. The numbers looked impossible. But numbers were not everything. The Krylov expected humans to fight like other species, following standard military doctrine and predictable tactics. They were about to learn that humans had spent centuries fighting wars where they were outmatched and outnumbered. Humans had developed strategies for those situations. What about guerrilla assets? Park asked. Fully deployed, Okonkwo confirmed. We have 30 small craft hidden throughout the system. Fast attack ships, armed civilian transports, even mining vessels equipped with military weapons. They'll look like civilian traffic until they attack. Park smiled grimly. Good. The Kryloth are used to fighting honorable battles with clear formations and straightforward tactics. We're going to teach them about asymmetric warfare. Meanwhile, at a PEC 7 station, Ambassador Chen prepared for the emergency council session. She knew what was coming. The council would pressure her to surrender. They would talk about preserving lives and being reasonable. They would not understand that humans measured survival differently. The session began with Speaker Eldris addressing the assembly. We gather today to discuss the escalating conflict between the Kryloth Dominion and humanity. 3 days ago, Kryloth forces engaged human military vessels. Reports indicate significant casualties on both sides. There were no casualties on both sides, Chen interrupted. The Kryloth lost 18 ships. Humanity lost 3. Those are not equivalent. Exther, the supreme adjudicator, rose from the Kryloth section. His scales were dark with anger. The human ambassador demonstrates her species' foolishness. You lost the battle. Your miners fled. Your ships were destroyed. Yet you speak with pride. Our ships fought 3 against 120, Chen replied calmly. They inflicted 6 times their number in casualties before falling. Yes, I speak with pride. Our people fought with courage against impossible odds. That is worth celebrating. The insectoid hive queen Ziltha spoke next. Her voice carried a tone of concern. Ambassador Chen, your species is young. You do not understand the costs of prolonged war. The Kryloth Dominion has resources you cannot match. They can build more ships. They can recruit more soldiers. This war will only end with human extinction unless you surrender now. Pride is not worth the death of your entire species. Chen looked around the chamber. She saw the faces of dozens of species. Some showed pity. Others showed confusion. None showed understanding. They truly believed humans would value survival over freedom. They thought surrender was the rational choice. Honored council members, Chen began, I need to explain something about humanity. For 10,000 years, humans have fought wars on Earth. Wars over territory, resources, religions, and ideologies. We've fought wars that killed millions over lines drawn on maps. We've developed weapons capable of destroying our entire biosphere. Through all of this, we learned something important. She paused, making sure she had everyone's attention. We learned that some things are worth fighting for, even if the odds are impossible. Freedom is worth fighting for. The right to live without intimidation is worth fighting for. The principle that might does not make right is worth fighting for. Principles. Vexther hissed. Your principles will not stop our warships. Your courage will not prevent your colonies from burning. This is reality. Human. We have 300 ships preparing to attack your colony world of New Jakarta. We will crush your defenses. We will occupy your planet, and your people will finally understand that the Kryloth Dominion cannot be defied. Chen felt a cold anger settle over her. You're going to attack 2 million civilians? We are going to occupy a rebellious colony, Vexter corrected. If your people resist, casualties will be their own fault. This is your last chance, Ambassador. Order your forces to stand down. Accept our terms. Or watch your colonies fall one by one. Chen stood up. She looked directly at Vexther, her eyes hard. The Kryloth Dominion thinks they can intimidate us because we're new to space. They think we don't understand how the galaxy works. But you're wrong. We understand perfectly. The galaxy operates on a system where bullies take what they want from the weak. Where might makes right. Where the strong face no consequences for their actions. She raised her voice, addressing the entire council. But humans reject that system. We've spent thousands of years fighting against that kind of thinking on our own world. We've overthrown empires, defeated dictators, and stood against tyranny in all its forms. We didn't come to space to bow before new bullies. We came to space as equals, deserving of respect and dignity. Then you will die as fools, Vexter said coldly.
Axe. Maps.
Chen acknowledged. But if we die, we'll die free, and we'll take as many Kryloth ships with us as possible. Your people wanted this war. Now they'll learn what happens when you threaten human homes and human families. They'll learn why humans are the most dangerous species to anger in this entire galaxy. The council's session ended without resolution. Chen returned to the human embassy and immediately contacted Earth. General Park's face appeared on her screen. The Kryloth are committed to attacking New Jakarta, Chen reported. Vexler believes overwhelming force will break our will to resist. Then he's about to learn a lesson about human determination, Park replied. How did the council react to your speech? They think we're committing suicide out of pride, Chen said. They don't understand that surrender isn't survival. It's just slower death. If we back down now, every species in the galaxy will know they can push us around. We'll spend the next century fighting off one bully after another. Ark nodded. Better to make our stand now. If we have to fight, we might as well teach the galaxy a lesson they won't forget. The Kryloth fleet arrived at New Jakarta 2 days later. Commander Jarek had been relieved of command after losing 18 ships. The new commander was Supreme War Master Krivex, the finest military mind in the Kryloth Dominion. He approached New Jakarta with confidence. 300 ships against 40 human vessels. The battle would be over quickly. What Krivex did not know was that humans had spent the past week preparing the perfect trap. They had studied every recording of the first battle. They had analyzed Kryloth tactics, ship capabilities, and command patterns. And they had prepared a reception that would shock the galaxy. The human ships in New Jakarta orbit received Krivex's surrender demand. Admiral Maria Okonkwo, commander of the defense forces, sent a simple reply. Last chance to withdraw. You're about to make history's biggest tactical mistake. Krivex laughed as he read the message. These humans truly believe they can win. Attack formation. All ships advance. Show them the price of defiance. The Kryloth fleet moved toward New Jakarta. The human ships fell back toward the planet, appearing to retreat. Krivex pressed forward, sensing victory. He did not notice the small craft hiding among the civilian traffic. He did not realize that the human ships were not retreating but leading him into a killing zone. Then the trap sprang closed, and the Battle of New Jakarta began. Part 4. The turning point, the Battle of New Jakarta, began like most naval engagements. The Kryloth fleet advanced in standard formation. 300 ships arranged in attack wings designed to overwhelm defensive positions. Supreme War Master Krivex watched from his flagship bridge as human vessels fell back toward the planet. Everything proceeded according to his plan. Maintain pursuit, Krivex ordered. All wings prepare to break their defensive line. Once we breach their formation, half the fleet will secure orbital positions, while the other half engages remaining military targets. The Kryloth ships accelerated, closing the distance to the human forces. Admiral Okonkwo's 42 vessels continued their retreat, occasionally firing volleys that seemed more desperate than effective. Krivex permitted himself a moment of satisfaction. The humans fought bravely. He would grant them that. But bravery meant nothing against overwhelming force. Then everything changed. The civilian transports scattered throughout the system suddenly accelerated toward the Kryloth fleet. At first, Krivex thought they were fleeing in panic. Then his sensors detected weapon signatures. These were not civilian vessels. They were armed military craft disguised as transports. Ambush, his tactical officer shouted. Multiple contacts emerging from the planetary rings. Weapons platforms activating throughout the system. The hidden human ships struck from every direction. Small, fast attack craft that had been hiding among the asteroids and moons suddenly appeared, firing missiles and energy weapons. Automated defense platforms that looked like satellites came online, targeting Kryloth vessels with devastating precision. Even mining ships equipped with industrial lasers joined the battle. Using their powerful cutting tools as weapons, the Kryloth fleet found itself surrounded. Krivex's perfect formation shattered as ships broke away to engage threats from multiple vectors. This was nothing like standard galactic warfare. This was chaos. This was madness. All ships. Defensive formation. Kravix ordered. Focus fire on the closest targets. But the human forces refused to fight predictably. The small attack craft would strike and then vanish behind planetary bodies or into asteroid fields. The armed civilian ships used kamikaze tactics, ramming damaged Kryloth vessels before they could retreat. The automated platforms operated with cold efficiency, requiring no sleep or fear, simply calculating optimal firing solutions and executing them perfectly. Admiral Loconqua's main fleet stopped retreating. Instead, they turned and charged directly at the Kryloth center formation. It was a suicidal move by standard tactics. But standard tactics assumed both sides wanted to minimize casualties. Humans seemed willing to trade their ships for maximum damage to the enemy, the destroyer. Sol took critical hits to its engines and weapons systems. Instead of withdrawing, its captain aimed at the vessel at a Kryloth cruiser and activated the self-destruct sequence. The explosion destroyed both ships and damaged 3 nearby vessels. They're using their own ships as weapons, Kravix's second officer said in horror. What kind of species is this? Kravix had no answer. He had studied military history from dozens of species. None of them fought like this. None of them valued victory over survival to this degree. The battle raged for 6 hours. The Kryloth had superior numbers, better armor, and more powerful weapons. But humans had something else. They had desperation. They had creativity. And they had 10,000 years of experience fighting wars where they were outmatched. When the battle finally ended, Kravix stared at his tactical display in disbelief. His fleet had lost 89 ships. 89. The human defenders had been reduced to 12 surviving vessels. But they had turned New Jakarta's orbit into a graveyard of Kryloth warships. Worse, the colony itself remained secure. Human ground forces had prepared defenses that would require months of siege warfare to overcome. And Kravix no longer had the strength to attempt it. Retreat, he ordered quietly. All ships, withdraw to Rally Point Delta. We need to regroup. As the Kryloth fleet limped away from New Jakarta, Kravix realized something terrible. In 2 battles, humanity had destroyed over 100 Kryloth vessels. The Dominion's once mighty fleet was being bled dry by a species that had been in space for less than a century. News of the Battle of New Jakarta spread even faster than the first engagement. The Galactic Council convened another emergency session. This time, the atmosphere was very different. Species that had dismissed humanity as primitive newcomers were reassessing their views. Ambassador Chen attended in person. She looked exhausted. The past 3 months had aged her visibly, but her eyes still burned with determination. Speaker Aldris opened the session with unusual gravity. The conflict between the Kryloth Dominion and humanity has escalated beyond anyone's predictions. Both sides have suffered significant casualties. The Council strongly recommends immediate peace negotiations. The Kryloth are losing, one council member whispered loudly enough to be heard. Others murmured agreement. Vexther rose from his seat. His scales were pale, drained of color. He looked diminished, like a shadow of the proud figure who had declared war 3 months ago. The Kryloth Dominion remains committed to our rightful claims. We will continue military operations until humanity acknowledges our authority. But his voice lacked conviction. Everyone in the chamber could hear it. The Kryloth had lost over 100 ships. Their economy was straining under military expenditures. Their other territorial holdings were becoming vulnerable as they concentrated forces against humanity. Chen stood to address the council. When she spoke, her voice carried across the chamber with absolute clarity. For 3 months, humanity has fought a war we did not want. The Kryloth attacked us because they thought we were weak. They thought new species should bow to old empires. They were wrong. She activated a holographic display showing battle statistics. In 3 months, humanity has destroyed 107 Kryloth vessels. We've lost 43 ships. We've evacuated 4 colonies, but here's what matters. We can sustain this fight indefinitely. Our shipyards are producing new vessels every week. Our military reserves are fully mobilized. Our people are united in defense of their freedom. Chen's eyes swept across the council. Can the Kryloth say the same? Can they afford to lose another 100 ships? Can their economy handle another 6 months of war? Can their governments survive the shame of being stalemated by a species they called primitive? The chamber fell silent. Everyone knew the answer. A council member from the ethereal luminary species spoke. Her voice was like wind chimes. Ambassador Chen, I must ask, why do humans fight so fiercely? Most species, when faced with such odds, would seek compromise, would accept some loss to preserve the greater whole. Why do you persist? Chen considered the question carefully. Because if we surrender to intimidation once, we will surrender forever. Humans learned this lesson across thousands of years of history on Earth. When bullies are rewarded for aggression, they become more aggressive. When tyrants face no resistance, they become more tyrannical. She paused, making sure everyone understood. Our ancestors fought and died for a simple principle. Freedom is not negotiable. The right to live without domination is not negotiable. These are values worth dying for. The Kryloth thought they could take our resources by force. They thought we would calculate the odds and surrender. They didn't understand that humans don't measure everything in numbers. We measure worth in principles. The Luminary representatives seemed to shimmer with thought, but at what cost? Your species has lost thousands of lives. Your colonies have been damaged. Was this worth the principle? Yes, Chen said simply, because now every species in this galaxy knows something important. Humanity will not be bullied. We will not accept domination. We are not easy prey. The Kryloth learned this lesson expensively. Hopefully, others will learn it by example. Vexter attempted to respond, but his own delegation was speaking urgently among themselves. The Kryloth government was fracturing. Military leaders were questioning the wisdom of continuing the war. Economic ministers were warning of financial collapse. The supreme adjudicator's authority was crumbling as the session ended. Chen received an urgent communication from Earth. General Park's face appeared on her private display.
Ambassador, we have a situation.
Our intelligence has detected a massive Kryloth fleet assembling. 400 ships. They're planning something big. Chen felt cold dread in her stomach. Target. Earth itself, Park said grimly. They're going to attack our homeworld. It's a desperation move. They want to break our will by striking at our heart. Chen closed her eyes for a moment. Then she opened them with renewed determination. What's the defensive plan? Admiral Okonkwo is handling it, Park said. But Chen, this could be the end. If they reach Earth, if they bombard our cities, ... Then we make sure they don't, Chen interrupted. We've fought this long. We can fight a little longer. Tell Okonkwo to do whatever is necessary. Humanity has survived ice ages, plagues, and world wars. We'll survive this too. In the Sol system, Admiral Maria Okonkwo reviewed the tactical situation. 400 Kryloth ships were coming to Earth. She had 67 vessels to defend her homeworld. The odds were worse than any battle yet. But Okonkwo was not just a military officer. She was a student of human history. She had studied the great defensive battles. Thermopylae, where 300 held off thousands. Stalingrad, where a city refused to fall. The Alamo, where defenders fought to the last man to buy time for others. Sometimes, Okonkwo knew, the greatest victories came from the most desperate stands. Sometimes, being willing to sacrifice everything was exactly what changed the course of history. She looked at Earth through the viewport of her flagship, the blue and green planet where humanity had evolved, where her ancestors had lived and died, where her family still lived, trusting her to protect them. All ships, she broadcast to her fleet. Prepare for the defense of Earth. This is not just another battle. This is everything. Every ship, every weapon, every life we have goes into this fight. We show the Kryloth and the entire galaxy what humans do when our backs are against the wall. The Battle of Sol was about to begin. Part 5. The Pista. Kryloth war fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Sol system. 400 ships, the largest armada the Dominion had ever assembled. Supreme War Master Krivex commanded from his new flagship, the inevitable victory. He had lost one battle, but this time he had overwhelming force. This time he would not fail. Sensors report, Krivex ordered. Detecting human defensive positions throughout the system, sir. Multiple ship concentrations in Earth orbit. Additional forces near Mars, Jupiter, and the asteroid belt. Counting approximately 60 vessels total. 60 against 400. Krivex felt his confidence return. All ships advance toward Earth. Standard formation. We will demonstrate what happens when primitive species defy the Kryloth dominion. The Armada moved forward. As they passed Neptune's orbit, Krivex received a transmission. Admiral Maria Okonkwo appeared on his view screen. She looked tired, but calm. Supreme War Master Krivex, you are entering human territory with hostile intent. This is your final warning. Withdraw now, or face the consequences. Krivex laughed. Admiral, I have 400 ships. You have 60. This is not a battle. This is an execution. Surrender Earth now, and your people will be treated as subjects rather than destroyed as rebels. Okonkwo's expression did not change. You were warned at New Jakarta. You were warned in the Outer Veil, but you keep coming. Very well. Let me teach you the most important lesson in human military history. Never attack someone's home. The transmission ended. Krivex ordered the fleet to continue. As they approached Earth's orbit, he saw the human ships arranged in a thin defensive line. Pathetic. This would be over quickly. Then Admiral Okonkwo sprang her trap. The defensive line suddenly broke formation. With ships scattering in all directions, Krivex initially thought they were retreating. Then his sensors went wild. Ships appeared from behind every moon, every asteroid, every planetary body in the system. Weapon platforms that had been powered down and hidden activated all at once. The asteroid belt itself seemed to come alive with automated defense systems. Contact report, Krivex shouted. How many ships? I'm counting over 200 signatures, sir. No, wait, more emerging from hiding. The entire system is armed. Earth's moon revealed hidden launch facilities, firing thousands of missiles. Mars' orbit was packed with defense stations that had been disguised as civilian infrastructure. Jupiter's moons each held concealed military bases. Even the comets in the outer system turned out to be carrying weapon packages. Humanity had turned its entire home system into a fortress. Every rock, every satellite, every piece of space debris had been weaponized. And Krivex had led his fleet directly into the center of it. The Battle of Seoul erupted with a fury that would be studied for generations. The Kryloth had numbers and firepower. Humans had home territory advantage and absolute desperation. Every human in the system knew what was at stake. If they lost here, Earth would fall. Their families would die. Their entire species might be exterminated. So they fought with a ferocity that terrified the Kryloth. Human ships rammed Kryloth vessels. Automated systems calculated perfect firing solutions. Hidden mines detonated in devastating chain reactions. Even civilian craft joined the battle. Using whatever weapons they could mount, Admiral Okonkwo commanded from the bridge of her flagship, the Indomitable. She coordinated the defense with brilliant tactical precision, moving human forces like pieces on a chessboard. When Kryloth ships tried to break through to Earth, she was there to stop them. When they tried to retreat, she cut off their escape routes. The Indomitable took catastrophic damage. Hull breaches on multiple decks. Weapon systems failing. Engines running on emergency power only. Okonkwo knew her ship was dying. She looked at her crew, these brave people who had followed her into the impossible battle. All hands, abandon ship, she ordered. Get to the escape pods. Admiral, we're not leaving you. Her first officer protested. That's an order, Commander, Okonkwo said firmly. You have families to return to. I have one more thing to do. She waited until the crew evacuated. Then she aimed her dying ship at Kravic's flagship. The Kryloth War Master saw it coming and tried to maneuver away, but the Indomitable was too close, moving too fast. Okonkwo whispered a prayer for her family. Then, activated the ship's self-destruct sequence. The explosion tore through both vessels. The inevitable victory broke apart, its reactor detonating in a secondary explosion that destroyed four nearby ships. Supreme War Master Krevex died without knowing he had just become a lesson in human determination. The Kryloth fleet broke, without their commander, facing losses that had already exceeded 100 ships. The remaining vessels retreated in disorder. Human forces pursued them to the edge of the system, destroying another 23 ships before letting the survivors escape. The Battle of Sol was over. Earth was safe, but the cost had been terrible. Humanity had lost 34 ships and thousands of lives. Admiral Okonkwo had become another name on the long list of heroes who gave everything to protect their people. 5 days later, Ambassador Chen received an unexpected message at a PEC 7 station. It was from the Kryloth Dominion. They requested immediate peace negotiations. Chen read the message 3 times to make sure she understood correctly. The Kryloth were asking for peace, not demanding, not threatening. Asking the negotiations took place in the Galactic Council chamber. The entire assembly attended, wanting to witness this historic moment. Supreme Adjudicator Vexther led the Kryloth delegation. He looked old now, defeated. His scales had faded to a dull gray color. Chen entered the chamber wearing her dress uniform. Pinned to her chest was a memorial badge honoring Admiral Okonkwo. She took her seat and waited. Vexther began with traditional Kryloth diplomatic language, trying to save face. He spoke of mutual misunderstandings and unfortunate escalations. Chen let him talk for exactly 2 minutes. Then she cut him off. Supreme Adjudicator, let us speak plainly. You declared war on humanity because you thought we were weak. You tried to steal our resources through intimidation. When we resisted, you attempted to exterminate us. You failed. Now you want peace because you're losing. Is that an accurate summary? The chamber went silent. No one spoke to the Kryloth that way, but Vexther could not deny it. He nodded slowly. These are humanity's terms, Chen continued. First, the Kryloth Dominion will publicly apologize to the human species and acknowledge our territorial rights. Second, you will pay reparations for the 4 colonies you attacked and the lives you took. Third, you will reduce your military fleet by 50% and accept monitoring by an independent council committee. Fourth, you will never threaten human interests again. The Galactic Council erupted in shocked murmurs. These terms would humiliate the Kryloth Dominion. They would reduce the Empire's power and prestige significantly. Vexther's scales darkened with anger. These terms are unacceptable. You ask us to dismantle our military, to pay tribute to you, to accept shame before the entire galaxy. Yes, Chen said simply. Those are the terms. You wanted to make an example of us. Instead, you will become the example. Every species in this galaxy will know what happens when you start a war with humanity, and if we refuse, Vexther demanded. Chen leaned forward. Then we continue the war. Humanity will keep fighting until your fleet is destroyed, until your economy collapses, until your government falls. We have already demonstrated that we can bleed you faster than you can bleed us. The question is, how much more are you willing to lose before you accept reality? Vexther looked at his delegation. His military advisors would not meet his eyes. His economic ministers were shaking their heads. His political allies were abandoning him. The Kryloth Dominion had gambled everything on a war they thought would be easy. They had lost. We accept your terms, Vexther said quietly. The words seemed to physically hurt him. The treaty was signed that same day. The Galactic Council witnessed as the Kryloth Dominion formally acknowledged human, territorial sovereignty and agreed to pay reparations. It was unprecedented. A major galactic power had been defeated by a species that had been in space for less than a century. 3 months passed. The galaxy adjusted to its new reality. Human diplomats found that other species treated them with newfound respect. Proposals that had been ignored were now seriously considered. Smaller. Civilizations approached Earth asking for defense agreements and trade partnerships. Ambassador Chen attended a regular council session. The atmosphere was completely different from her first visit. When she entered, species nodded in respect. When she spoke, others listened carefully. Humanity had earned its place through the hardest way possible. After the session, Ida, Hive Queen Ziltha, approached Chen privately. The insectoid leader's compound eyes reflected genuine respect. Ambassador, I must apologize. When you first came to this council, I dismissed your species as primitive and foolish. I thought you did not understand how the galaxy worked. I was wrong. Chen smiled slightly. You weren't wrong about our understanding, Your Majesty. We understood perfectly. The galaxy operates on a system where the strong dominate the weak, where might makes right. We just refused to accept it. And now you have changed it, Ziltha said. Other species are watching. Smaller civilizations that have been bullied for generations are finding courage. The Kryloth are not the only empire that takes what they want through force. But now those empires know that their victims might fight back. That a small, determined species can defeat a much larger power. Chen nodded. That was one of our goals. We didn't just fight for ourselves. We fought to prove a principle. That freedom matters more than survival. That courage can overcome superior force. That being new or small or weak does not mean you have to submit to bullies. She looked out at the stars through the observation port. Humans have spent 10,000 years learning those lessons on Earth. Now we're teaching them to the galaxy. A young human officer approached, carrying a data tablet. Ambassador, there's a situation developing in the frontier zones. The Dexian clans are threatening 3 minor species, demanding tribute. Those species are asking if Earth would be willing to help. Chen took the tablet and reviewed the information. 3 small civilizations facing intimidation from a larger power. A situation very much like what humanity had faced just months ago. Send a message to General Park, Chen said. Tell him we need to discuss our options. Also contact those 3 species. Let them know humanity is willing to talk. The officer left. Ziltha watched Chen with curiosity. You would help them? Even though you have no direct interest in that region, we have every interest, Chen replied. Because if we stand by while others are bullied, we become part of the problem. Humans learned something else across our history. Freedom is not just about protecting yourself. It's about protecting others who can't protect themselves. She turned to face the Hive Queen. The Kryloth War taught the galaxy a lesson. But it's not the only lesson that needs teaching. Other empires still believe might makes right. Other species still think they can take what they want through force. They need to learn that humanity will stand against that. Not just for ourselves, but for anyone who asks for help. His mandibles clicked in what might have been approval. You are building something new, Ambassador. An alliance of species who refuse to accept the old system? This could change everything. That's the idea, Chen agreed. Humans didn't come to space to find a new home. We came to make the galaxy better. To prove that cooperation is stronger than domination, that courage and principle can overcome superior force. She smiled, thinking of Admiral Okonkwo and all the other humans who had given their lives in the war. They had not died just to protect Earth. They had died to prove something important. That freedom was worth fighting for. That bullies could be defeated. That even the smallest species could stand tall if they had the courage. The Kryloth wanted to make an example of us, Chen said quietly. Instead, we made an example of them. Now every species in the galaxy knows, if you threaten humanity, you'd better be ready for the fight of your life. Because we're the species that turned fighting into an art form. We're the ones who never surrender when our backs are against the wall. We're the galaxy's deadliest species. She paused, then added with a slight smile. Congratulations to the Kryloth. They declared war on us and learned that lesson the hard way. In the depths of space, human ships patrolled the outer veil once more. The mining operations continued, now protected and respected. Earth's fleet grew stronger each month, building new vessels and training new crews. And across the galaxy, other species watched and learned. Humanity had arrived among the stars, and the galaxy would never be the same.